Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. It's good to see so many of you already here. Mike, I think you were the first one in. So, Ruthie and Stephen and Mel. Hello, Joanne and Leanne and Lisa. And we have Pauline and Joanne. Oh, my goodness. Oh, yeah, lovely. So good to see you all. Thank you for being here. And I'm so excited that Claire is with us today. And we are going to be talking about winter sowing. So I wonder, okay, I'm going to ask you, Claire, tell me, how has your experience been with winter sowing?
Well, I've had 2 or 3 years doing it now, and it can be a little bit hit and miss. But I have been experimenting with quite a few different things, and some work better than other things. But generally, I mean, when I learnt about it, and then looked into how many varieties you could sow in this way. It's an absolute revelation. It's a
Yeah.
really big step up in your gardening knowledge and repertoire if you get onto winter sowing if you've never done it before. I think it's brilliant. So I'm a big fan of it. I love pushing it to whoever will listen, even if you're not a gardener.
Yeah. Well, there used to be a website called wintersowing.org. And I think
Okay.
one of the original developers of this whole concept, that was their website, but it is no longer up.
Oh, isn't it?
And
Oh, I'll stop
oh,
writing it down.
I know. I saw you and I thought, no, I got to tell you, it's not up anymore. And
Right.
apparently, there were just volumes of information on that site because so many people have linked to it, and it's no longer there.
That's
So
a shame.
I know. So I
Oh,
kind of feel like we need to pull all of our knowledge together and put it somewhere
yeah,
because it is. At first, it seems counterintuitive, and then when you really think about it, it's exactly how seeds are kind of meant to grow.
yeah.
Uh, so, uh, why did it stop, Audrey? What stopped? Danny's asked me a question.
Mm.
Not sure what you're referring to.
Oh, the
Oh, why
website.
did the
Why did it?
website? I have no idea.
Yeah,
I feel
it
like
might have been a small, like run by regular people that maybe then couldn't keep up to it. Who knows? And then maybe they didn't pay for the hosting or something, and it just
yeah,
disappeared.
but
Who
I
knows?
sadly, it's like an incredible. It was an incredible place, from what I understand. I had never been there, but several gardeners that I have great respect for said it was one of the best resources. So, so if any of you in the chat done winter sowing before, just kind of pop in and say. But I thought Claire and I would just talk about containers, like kind of what you need to do it. Um,
Because it's so easy,
it's so easy.
and you
Uh,
don't even need a greenhouse.
oh
You
no,
just need an outside.
yeah, I don't have a greenhouse, so mine literally go in the snow, and
Mm,
I just leave them there.
yeah.
So they kind of take care of themselves. So
Mm,
all you need is a container of some kind that at least lets light in. So it can be like one of these, like translucent water jugs. It can be a clear salad container that you get from the grocery store. I mean,
a
there's
pop
no
bottle.
need. Yes, pop bottles.
Yeah, just
I've
radio
seen
recycling.
any kind of plastic thing that lets light in.
Yeah.
Um,
Even a big plastic storage tub as
yes,
well. I've done my leeks in those before as well, funnily enough, just to get them germinated. But yeah, you just need something that can create like a little bit of a mini greenhouse. You want the cold to get in there, that's why they get chucked outside, but they do need to just have that little bit of protection just because they're little babies.
well, I have also seen where you get like a storage tote.
Yeah.
that's a clear storage tote, or that, again, the frosted plastic, and you do it upside down. So
Oh,
you
right.
actually just put things in pots, and
Mm,
you put them on the lid, that
yeah.
you've cut holes in so that can drain, and then you put holes in the tub part and put that over the top like it's the little,
Yeah.
you're trying to, like, create a little greenhouse
Yeah.
is really what you're trying to do, but you wanna let water in,
Mm,
air in, and water out. You just
yeah.
don't want things sitting, because the seeds will, they're not gonna like sitting in wet for.
Yeah. Like normal seedlings done
Yes,
in spring.
you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
want their
Same
feet
thing.
to be too wet.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so you're not limited really by, um, again, there's nothing to go out and buy to do this. You need a knife or something to poke holes in your container, and some tape to tape it back up, right? And then put it outside. And the milk jug became, I think, the really popular one because it's easy to cut, and you get that hinge by the handle. You take, oh yeah, that's Claire
I'll
has some.
demonstrate. I've got an
Claire,
old Anki one from last
yeah,
year. Yeah, so that kind of thing. I've got Didier ones as well. If you just want to do a few varieties or play at it, then you're not wasting much compost or seeds.
right. And
But yeah,
so,
you're right. Yeah, trim it round. You do want quite a good reservoir. I know Danny said about it. Just seen him say clear meat packaging is a good mini greenhouse. But I think with winter sowing, because they can be left quite a long time and they get quite a good strong root run
yeah,
as well. If you've got a good depth of soil and then plenty of room, if you're growing sweet peas and they come up here, you need enough room. But yeah, leave it with a little hinge just for convenience like that. Holes in the bottom, soil in there. And it is a good idea if it's soil that's not like a poor nutrient one, because they are going to sit a while, so they want a little bit of feed to be munching
right,
away at.
right. You don't
Yeah,
want seed starting mix. You want more like
that's
a
it.
potting mix
Yeah, regular,
or
something
something.
normal. Yeah, if you
Yeah,
use your garden soil, you might start germinating stuff you don't want and then end up with a right jungle in there to try and sort out. But yeah, once they're in there, tape it up. You can take the lid off, yeah, if you put them outside just to let a bit of water in, and if they're
oh,
getting just enough moisture,
yes.
you can pretty much walk off and forget it largely as well, and then come back to it spring,
Now,
see what's
yeah.
germinating.
Now the problem is if you
Yeah.
forget about them too much, and I lost a few of mine last year because
Mm,
it got really warm very fast. And,
yeah.
a little greenhouse can also act like an incinerator. So you want to make sure as the weather is warming up that you get the tape off. And on
Mm,
days that you can open the lid.
yeah.
So they are not, yeah, we went from freezing cold to, oh my gosh, it's 80 degrees. Uh, and these are behind one of my raised beds. That's where I usually tuck them so the neighbors aren't. See, I mean, they're not the prettiest things to look at. We'll just say that. And I forgot about them, and I lost quite a few because they just
Mm,
fried.
yeah.
So you do also want to make sure you keep them in your sight a little bit so you don't, because they're so hands off. And
Mm,
that's what's the wonderful thing about them. You
yeah.
don't need grow lights, you don't need heated propagators, you just put them out and let nature do what it's designed to do.
Yeah, it
Um,
suits me really well because I mean, it's a bit scathing saying I'm a tight gardener, but I do like to use the benefits of nature really, rather
sure.
than I don't have a grow light set up. I've got a couple of rubbishy little kitchen light things I sometimes try and put over the chilies just for something, but I don't have a setup, and I've only got a couple of heat mats. And last year I only used one. I didn't even use my Super 7. I used the containers, but I didn't use the heated Super 7 base to it or anything. So it's great that you're just using what nature does, and if you've got things under your lights, or if you put them on a south facing window, like when people do the sweet peas in October time, I've had no joy with those because the cat finds them and destroys them, and they grow really leggy as well. But when they're outside and they're cold, a bit like with my onion trick as well, because I did them Boxing Day but put them in the garage and they grew so slowly. Mine were a success. They were fine doing them that early, but it does
Okay.
limit the growth because the cold limits the amount of light, and as they grow and the light levels
Sure.
increase, they grow naturally. Really, you're not trying to give them false circumstances where they just go really, really leggy because it's too warm, but there's not enough light either.
Right.
So yeah, it's just using nature, like you say, how it's intended, I suppose, really.
Yeah.
And anything that needs stratification as well, anything that needs that cold spell and however long
Mhm.
months of cold to break the dormancy,
Yes.
you can use that to your advantage as well, because there's some things you won't get germinated unless you put them in the fridge, but just chuck them outside. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
ignore what
let's
it says on the seed packet.
yeah, so let's talk about what kind of I'm going to actually address Mike's question here. And then we'll what's the definition of winter sowing? Does it have to be outside as opposed to sowing indoors in propagators? Yes. Otherwise, it's we're sowing in the winter inside, which I do both. Um, so, but winter sowing is specifically getting stuff outside, letting nature. It will germinate when it's time, when the seed is triggered to do its thing, and then you just kind of have to manage it a little bit. Again, not letting it fry like I did a few things last year. But so why don't we talk a little bit about the kinds of seeds that you can do? And you do. Uh, oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading questions here. Uh, Stephen, I just want to answer these before we get off. Stephen's asking, does anyone know if the container should face either south or west? I put mine facing south, but it's between two of my raised beds. So it's in a sheltered, so it's not going to get horrible wind because they can knock over, even if they're a nice big water jug that you have a lot of soil in. They still
Yeah.
can, if it's a good wind, they can still topple over. So they're
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
protected,
Or
but they're
critters
funny.
intervene.
They're what?
Neighborhood cats, or maybe your squirrels. They may intervene and knock them all
They
over as
might.
well.
They might. So
Yeah.
I have them kind of all snuggled up together in between these two raised beds
Mm.
and facing south because I do think getting full sun is because there's not much sun right now. So I'm like, let's get every bit of sun we can get to them.
Do you know, I do the reverse, which is really interesting. When I did
Mm.
mine last year, I put them behind the greenhouse, wedged next to where I've got one of my barrels of doom, where I drowned the mare's tail. So they are on the north side of the greenhouse, and they're not really getting any light at all.
But
Um,
you also sowed some different seeds. So
yeah.
we're going to get to that in just a minute because I'm very intrigued.
Controversy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by what you did.
I
But
will. I
here,
do move mine when they start showing, of course. But whilst they're just going through that cold process, they can, as long as they're safe and not getting knocked over, and they're getting a little bit of water, or you're doing a bit gently yourself. They all they want at that point, really, unless it's something that needs the light to germinate, is that they just want the cold. So I don't worry about it too much.
yeah, and I always take the lids always off my containers. Let the
Mm,
snow, let the rain, whatever's out there, let it get into those containers.
yeah,
And if I've left enough drainage holes in the bottom, then
yeah.
I think all is well. But
Mm,
classically, here's the kind of seeds that you can do. You can plant perennials. Almost any perennial will do winter sowing wonderfully. And I'm going to say almost everyone because I've never tried every one. But that's rule number one. If it's perennial in your area, it should do just fine. Seeds that self seed. So like what's the one? Calendula
mm,
self seeds like crazy. Poppies would be a self seeder. Anything that self seeds is a great candidate for this. and the other one is cool weather crops,
Mm.
like your
Like
early best.
annuals. Yeah.
Yes, the ones that can take a bit of a frost. Now, with all that said, uh, tell us, if you will, what you sow, because you don't follow any of those rules.
Well, it's new. Well, it's fairly new, but there's a lot of people I think that we've talked about it before. They'll already sort of know, and some people are playing along. But yeah, successfully winter sowed tomatoes last year. So we're expanding the experiment, and my last video was all about it. And there's a lot of people in the comments of the video have mentioned that they're playing along. So last year, I think it was the 26th of November, I just had the last little Roma tomato that I'd sown from seed that I got free with the magazine was a bit squidgy. And I just got one of the containers and I just poked the whole tomato into it and then just left it. I actually left it in the greenhouse. But the theory was because when you clear out everything in your greenhouse and chuck it all in the compost heap, if you have a compost heap, we all well know that when you start messing with it in spring, suddenly everything germinates and you start seeing a load of tomato seedlings. But of course, they're all mixed up. You don't know what you're taking out. If you wanted to pot them on, because you could, if you wanted to, just let them grow themselves, pot them on. But I left them in the greenhouse because I thought, I don't know whether they're insulated in a big compost heap, and if it never freezes, freezing them might be a problem. So I did leave them in the greenhouse. But last year, where I was, I think it got down to about -7 or 8 for a week or two. So they got pretty cold. But start of April, they all started showing. And then once one showed, there were just an explosion of Romas. And because when you winter sow them as well, because they've had a bit of a hard life and they've had to
Yeah.
struggle a little bit, they're very, very strong seedlings, which is well worth mentioning for everything else as well. They're just really robust, and they were amazing, and I had so many Romas planted out last year. So this year, because I had some plants that were some tomatoes that were ready earlier in the year, I froze some as a bit of an insurance policy, and I've actually planted some whole frozen tomatoes, which of course they're going to be defrosted, aren't they, by now, because it were, again, end of November. So I'm just experimenting, because if there's there's always going to be a risk of blight with your tomatoes. And I know Will from Flying Gardener, he lost his this year quite early doors, but if it's successful to take one and freeze it, your first batch that you get ripe, and then at the end of the year, end of November, sow those. If it does work this year, you're going to get over the blight issue as well. So we're going to try that. And we've got some people sowing them winter sown from seed as well. And we're just going to see what everybody finds happens. But I've not really, there might be some other people that have done it. I've not gone searching for it. But again, they self-sow themselves. So why not use it?
Yeah,
Mm.
I have heard of some people uh doing the tomatoes and peppers and eggplants, but they
Mm.
usually don't put them out like
Mm.
now. I've
Yeah,
heard they put them out more like end of March, very early April, at
yeah,
least here because we get so cold.
yeah.
And I think that, and the fact that you have them in that little protected area, I also wonder if that's like a little microclimate that keeps them from freezing.
Yeah, yeah, I think
Uh,
so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I've not
just
pushed
wonder.
it with what they'll cope with, but we know if you put a tomato in freezing conditions, it's not going to have
Oh,
a happy time.
no, it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
But I'm very intrigued by this. But
Mm.
I think I might for mine start them maybe early April outside just to see what happens. Because that's
Yeah,
still quite cold here.
yeah.
Because we're not frost free until the end of April.
Mm.
So, but I might try that and just see. 'Cause I love it's a plant it and forget it. It's like growing a potato, right?
Mm.
You
Well,
put
they're
it in,
related.
yeah, but well, they're all in the same family, aren't they?
Yeah.
Uh, but this whole thing is you just put it out and let it do its thing and
Mm.
make sure to open the containers before it gets
Mm.
too hot.
Well, I
Like,
thought as well, by pushing the whole tomato in, because when that tomato, if it's in the wild, not that that's really going to
right.
happen, it's not going to look like a Roma, is it, in the wild? But when they drop on the ground, they're actually in a little protective blob. of their
Right.
own, aren't they? And all that
Absolutely.
jelly and stuff as it rots down is protecting it and providing a little patch of fertilizer for it.
Mm.
So I think the same about a pumpkin. I mean, if you left a pumpkin out
Oh,
and
they
it
would.
just rotted in place, it
Right.
could grow its own because all that as it rots. I know it's a mess and it's horrible and rats and whatever, but it could be the right environment.
Oh,
It's like a little egg
it
almost.
would absolutely do that.
Yeah. So I
And
just
so
thought
even
the
as you
whole tomato
say,
will protect it.
no, even as you say that, I'm thinking I have had volunteer tomatoes show up all over my garden, and I'm thinking I never put a tomato near here.
Yeah.
And the birds eat them, and then they do their thing, and then they plant a
Yeah.
seed. And I'm sure it was overwintered because I don't leave rotten tomatoes on top
Mm.
of my um, soil. So you've
I
got
do
me.
because I'm horrible.
Although I have taught some children how to grow tomatoes using slices of tomatoes.
Mm.
They just let
Yeah.
let them just plant a slice, and it's kind of fun to watch them because they do come up quite quickly. And
Mm.
kids need a little more immediate gratification. Although I love immediate gratification, but they need it a whole lot more,
Yeah.
or they enjoy it a whole lot more. Let's put it that way. Uh, I think for There's another good question from Steven here. Um, I have only done this in Minnesota. Does it matter if your climate is very mild or very aggressively cold? Uh, I think in warmer climates, like I can't imagine anybody in like Georgia or Florida doing winter sowing. However, they might, but because they can really kind of grow year round down there. And in Southern California, I can't imagine. Uh, like, why would they? I would just plant the seed in the ground, and
Mm.
I think it's mainly for cold climates so that you can get the seeds going.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. They'd never germinate a blue Himalayan poppy, would they? Because it's
I
it's
don't.
got to have cold. But they'd just have to do their own variation. Again, whatever will do it naturally in your
Right.
climate will do it.
Or you can cold stratify in your refrigerator,
Yeah.
which is kind of a nut. It's like a yeah. It's a little. It's how can I put this?
I tried
It
that, but I had to take too many bottles of wine out for space. So yeah, I prefer
So, you're keeping your priorities straight, right? Uh,
always.
but yeah, I mean, you can cold stratify anything that we just talked about as well, and put them in baggies on paper towel and get them wet, and then keep them in the fridge for 3 to 6 weeks, depending on what you're trying to stratify, and
Mm,
you'll kind of get the same response, but then you have to plant them indoors. So it's more labor intensive, but
yeah.
it's another way to get those perennials and things that need that cold moment. Um,
Because the other thing as well, which you just reminded me of, if you've then got to move those plants indoors like a normal spring sowing, you've got to go through all the hardening off. And with the winter sown, it's done.
exactly, it's done.
Yeah, it's done automatically. Take it,
Yeah,
put it out, job
yeah,
done, go to the pub, off you
yeah,
pop. Yeah.
yeah. Which I think is just one of the other best reasons to do it, because you don't have to do we're going to take the flats in and out of the house, or yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's the spring dance, right? And the
Yeah.
more you can get away from that, I think the better.
Mm.
Um, yeah. Oh, Sophie's here. Hi, Sophie. Who else have I missed? The right pair plot. Good to see you both. Uh, yeah, Robin. Oh, hi, Robin. Robin's here. Anyway, so you have already done your winter sowing, correct,
Me.
Claire? Yeah, sorry, Claire.
Well,
Yeah.
well, no, yes and no, because I've done some. I've done a load of tomatoes. I still might try some more as well. I've done. on my little video, I had a straw flower that I saved from this year because I think straw flower's better when it's fresh. Um, I'm sure I heard that, and I think it's right actually. But because I got some behind me. I took a whole one, not one of them, one at fresh ones, and I've just poked the whole flower, dried flower, into the soil, just thinking if that dropped on the ground of its own accord. But I might get loads and loads of seedlings to try
Yeah.
and fight with. But again, it's just an experiment, is that? But straw flowers work brilliant. You'll be overrun with them. They're fabulous. Are those lupins work really well as well. But I've got quite a few more to do. I do have some cosmos because I've got some new cosmos this year. I've got the apricot lemonade one. I've got to do me. I'm going to do my sweet peas winter sown
I
and
am
put them in the
definitely gonna,
cold.
yes, I'm gonna do that
Yeah,
this year.
yeah. You will get those setting seed of their own accord. Out I do outside. So yeah, I don't like to do with them. Back end of the year and be fighting for legginess and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'll winter sow them, chuck them out because I don't want them germinating now. So they'll come up at the right time. Bunny grass. I'm going to do. I love bunny grass.
Oh,
That I
the
find that
bunny
growing
tails?
everywhere now.
The bunny tails, like the little
Yeah.
fuzzy, yeah.
Oh,
That's
is that up here? Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, hang on. Wait, I've got to have a close up if people. Oh,
Oh, they're so
my stuff's
pretty.
pulling out of my ears. Yeah, but can we
Bunny
see? Is it
tails,
doing?
yeah.
Is it doing it? Is it doing it? That business, professional business like that. Those little fluffings that are, and pull them out. There's the seed. Yeah,
Yeah.
just like that. Yeah, so you can do those. I'm tethered to my thing with me. Hang on, my ears. There we go. That's better. But yeah, bunny grass. I'm going to do. I'm going to try panic grass because I grew that last year as well. So that might well set seed
Panic
of its own
grass, tell me
accord.
what that is.
How tall is it now? Now it gets medium sort of height for a grass, about 50 centimeters tall.
Okay.
It's got lovely quite. It's got a long spray of like multiple little seed heads, and it's quite a nice maroony purpley colour. Is that?
Okay.
And it's just sort of leans over, and it just moves
Oh, I
beautifully.
know, what you're talking. I don't think we call it that here. But
Yeah, it might
actually, I
just.
was just looking at something like that today. So
Yeah,
as you're describing it, I'm thinking, I just saw that.
yeah. Trying to
Yeah.
think what it was growing next to. And it picked up wherever I had it. It picked up the colour of something else, and it looked lovely with it. And I can't remember what it was now, but it comes up at like a bit like my sign wherever it is behind here, like a maroony brown colour,
Okay.
and it's lovely. It's really nice, is that? So I fancy giving that another go. I do have some poppies to do, like a cream coloured one. Snaps as well, snapdragons.
I am definitely putting my snapdragons out there this year.
Yeah, I've got
And
some
let's
coral
see.
coloured ones.
I
Yeah,
just want to see. I've struggled with snapdragons, and I'm gonna get it happening this year.
yeah,
That's that's the one thing I've gotta nail that. So I'm gonna throw a jug of those out there as well, and then I'm
mm,
gonna try starting some inside, and we'll see what happens.
yeah,
So you have started just your tomatoes at this point,
and straw flowers
and straw flower.
experimentally.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's really a window for this. It's not like you have to do it all this week,
No,
right? I
no.
mean, because honestly, I kind of wait till as I get more jugs, I'll put more out because I
Mm,
have another container that I can pop in there. So at least up here, I think we've pretty much got a window from December sometimes is not cold enough, I don't think. Maybe January to mid March, late March. Uh,
mm.
but everything seems to be just getting a little bit warmer. So
Yeah,
I'm not, I'd like to get all of mine out there by end of February. And
yeah. I'd say
then
that
I'll,
for us.
yeah, and then
Mm,
I'd feel like, okay, they're going to have enough freeze and they're going to
mm.
have enough time out there to fully stratify before um,
Yeah.
spring hits.
I mean, some things need. I can't remember how long Himalayan poppies need, but there's some oddballs that need a long time. They need months. Well, they could do to break dormancy. I think as well, hellebores I
Mm.
think is a funny one. I think they can take ages. I've not managed it with hellebores, but I might try.
Well,
There were one growing in Cornwall, a black one that I saw on St Michael's Mount, and I went and I found a couple of seeds. Or I thought they might have been mouse poo, but I thought they were seeds. Put them in my pocket. I thought I'll try that, but no, I left them ages outside, and I think I got something grew, and then
okay.
it broke off. I don't know if it damped off or something happened to it, and it may have been a hellebore, or it might not have been, but I'd love to get some hellebores growing.
Okay. Oh, and
Yeah,
here's another tip. If you are in a dry area, or sometimes your winters are drier, put some vermiculite on top before you seal up your jug, and that will help keep a little bit more moisture
yeah, I've done
inside.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, with mine. At
And
least
you
the ones I've done so far.
and if you've have like an extended period during the winter where you've had no rain, no snow, you can take a mister and just stick it in the top of your container and give them just a little mist. But I haven't had to do much management of that other than opening the darn containers
Mm.
earlier. Okay, I saw a couple questions here. Let me go back just a minute. Help me, Claire, if you see it. I saw a question. There it is.
Oh,
Nancy, once germination occurs in spring, do you pot them up a couple times or transplant straight into the garden? I pop them straight into the garden. I mean, you could do either if you want to get them bigger before you plant them in the garden, but they're hardened off. I mean, they're pretty much ready to roll. So if you have a spot ready for them, I would. My goal is to put them directly into the garden. Just
I must admit, I've normally potted things on. I did with the tomatoes just
okay.
once, but I was thinking about the things last year that I did, the straw flowers and whatnot, and I do remember it were when I were making my raspberry bed and it were raining. I kept running in and out and doing indoor jobs and outdoor jobs, and I potted a lot of mine on. But I've got a dictionary hiding behind me, a really old one that's dropping in bits. And you know your old seed catalogues, if they're not shiny, if they're quite papery paper, like
Yeah.
absorbent paper, I take one up and leave it in the greenhouse and it dry out and go all crispy. And then I form those around a spice jar into little paper pots. And I put everything into those. So again, I've got to make the pots, but it's quite meditative, really, isn't it? And yeah, it's quite nice. So yeah, another little recycling project. But then I put mine on after that, I must say.
Oh, okay. Well, you can do both.
Mm.
I yeah, I also have had great success with artichokes,
Right.
winter sowed, because they need a nice long stratification time. So they did better for me winter sowing than they have indoors. So oh, Nicola, thank you. Happy New Year to you. Nicola's here from Australia. And I saw another question. Um,
Denise has asked a funny one. She said she's had larkspur stratifying in the fridge for 2 years. Yeah, that's probably long enough, I would imagine. But I mean, I know Steve, of course, Steve Greenside up, bless him. I think it was larkspur. He always mentioned when he were doing his spring sowing, he said he always has trouble with it. And I think I might have even commented at the time at 2 years on the bounce. I think he sowed them and said I always have trouble, and I never saw him put any out. And larkspur, I think, are beggars for it. I think they really do want a good cold period. They're ideal, I think, for winter sowing. But I haven't tried them. And delphinium, are delphinium the same as larkspur, or are they slightly different? But delphinium's another good candidate if they're not the same. So yeah, Denise, get them out.
yeah, yeah, I think they're plenty cold. Um, my snaps are still in bloom. Wow, you're in Oregon. Oh, Oregon is my favorite state in the country. It is the coastline in Oregon is the prettiest I've seen. And there's no, some sorry, this is obviously a, you know, rabbit trail, but they don't build on the side of the ocean. There's no there's no structures, there's no so you have to be on the other side of like the expressway or I think it's the 105 or something that goes down the coast. So you're all on one side you're seeing really cool mountainous structures, and on the other side it's ocean. And it's the Pacific Ocean, which is like no other ocean. It is so gorgeous. Okay, so her snaps. Should I back to the question? Should I bring my potted snapdragons into a back porch for a few months? Well, I'm curious how low you get temperature wise. That'd be my first thing. But snaps can take cooler weather. Um, I guess if you were going to get a like a deep freeze, I'd sure do that. But yeah, I guess I'm not sure how cold you get because I know the Pacific Northwest is just an interesting uh, weather system out there, and I've never, yeah, I don't know enough about it to tell you. But I would keep it so that it doesn't get down to a hard freeze, like 28 degrees. I wouldn't let it get that low. Um, wow, Robin. Okay, this is really interesting. Robin's saying that snaps will occasionally survive Chicago winters in the ground. That is like super impressive because I think Chicago gets colder than Detroit. So maybe I shouldn't pull mine out in the winter. Maybe I'm not doing myself a favor. Maybe they can just stay in the ground. Now, do you find your snaps, Claire, like will come back if you leave them?
Mm. Well, yes and no again. So I think there must be a bit of a tolerance point or something because in the back garden, I didn't have many come up last year, but it's north facing and quite close to the house, so it is pretty dark, and we've got clay soil. So I don't know whether there's a mixture of the amount of moisture in the soil and the water freezing around them. They when they came up in the back garden last year, they came up quite late, I must admit. I forget when, but they seemed to emerge really quite late. Like I think it were well into, well, sort of early summer. They seemed late, but I've got quite a big one, a big clump that's in a bit of a raised planter. So I bet it's at least 12 inch off the ground in front of the shed. So that's like south facing, and that's survived a good couple of years as that. And I take the seed I'm going to sow. I've taken off it the other day, so I hope it's still okay. It looked all right. There were a lot that still looked fine. So that's been fine, and it's actually stayed green the whole time as well. But the ones in the back died off, and then I don't know if there were self seeded ones or quite what. I think they might have been self sown ones. Those. So yeah, seed in the back, but the plants survive a bit up at the allotment. So, and we got down to about -7 or -8. I just think in that raised planter, it was maybe the ground would have frozen, but
Right.
maybe it's the fact that the sides are a bit higher and protected it from the cold wind, maybe. So yeah, a bit of a tolerance point going on there. At least that's what I found, but I don't totally know. Really, that's just what I found.
Okay. Well, just oh, and Nicola, I'm so sorry. I got you confused. Um, I got you confused. So yes, Nicola's from Cornwall, not from
Oh, nice.
Australia.
Has she got a
But
spare room for me? I'll come and
I hear
stay.
Cornwall is really pretty. That's
Oh
kind of a
yeah.
vacation spot, isn't it?
I want to live down Cornwall. Honestly, I'd be off if I could get a well-paying job and a cheap house, which is absolutely not going to happen in Cornwall. Or maybe a well-paying job. It depends what I'm doing, really. But oh, I absolutely love Cornwall. Second home, really.
I've heard good things for sure.
Mm.
Um, okay, so let's see. Winter sowing. What else do we need to talk about? I'm trying not to forget.
Oh, looking at my list.
I've never done this with winter sowing, but I'm gonna try it this year, is to plant my spring uh crops out. And I've never
Brassicas.
done pardon me?
Brassicas. You're going to try brassicas?
Well, I'm also gonna try spinach and arugula
Mm.
because they go to seed so quickly. I thought maybe I'll get a better harvest with those if I start them outside in the real cold
Mm.
because they love cold weather, and maybe cilantro. things that really like it nippy cold and let them kind of do their thing.
I've got quite a big patch. Well, it was humongous. It completely went like hay and fell over, and when I abandoned the plot a little bit while I had all my jobs going on late summer, of rocket, loads of rocket, and I've collected
Yeah,
a load of seed from it. I've got like a bag full of seed. And also I had quite a big lot of coriander that set seed. So I'm going to, because the thing is, if you keep hoeing and mulching and keeping it really tidy, you've got to stop that at a certain point if you want to let them come up and winter sow themselves, and then you can put them on.
right,
Just let them grow where they are and then move them on. So
right.
I'm going to experiment with that rather than winter sowing some of those. And there's a brune shallots as well. I'm going to see if any of those start coming up, and then I can move some of those on. But I am going to do my onions as well. Not really winter sown, but I'm going to chuck them in the garage where it's pretty cold.
Well, it seems like onions would winter sow.
They may well. Yeah, maybe like the tomatoes, maybe if they're not cold. But if there's a brune shallots that have sown themselves, the seed on the ground, if they do come up, because we've already had some minus, we had a couple of weeks where it kept quite cold already, that'll say yes. That'll definitely say it to me that they're a candidate for it.
Yeah, the only thing for me is I want them to be bigger than if they're. So I'm trying to maneuver nature because I want
Yeah.
the onions to go out bigger than they probably would naturally.
Mm.
So that's the other piece you gotta play with a little here.
Be nice to know if celeriac will do it, 'cause of course that takes ages. But again, it's all to be played with, isn't it? Because I did
Yeah.
wonder. I thought, I wonder, shall I try some Swede? Because I mean, Danny with his Rutabaga, Swedebaga challenge, I thought I'll put some
Yeah,
Swede in. Mine were terrible last year. I've got one that's going to be worth eating. The rest are like candlesticks. They're just embarrassing me, to be honest. I need to just dig them up, because I just, every time I look at them, I'm just like, oh no.
mine were huge. Like
Oh wow.
they scared me a little bit. They looked like they were otherworldly.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so I'm gonna try. And I think I will grow some. What you're laughing?
Nicola said, come and stay. I'm there. I'm packing tonight. I'm on my way. Quitting my job. I'm coming.
Ex- That's cute. What?
Honestly, I'd be there.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna try just growing some early season brassicas this year, and then not growing them once those white butterflies show up. That's one battle. I'm just tired of fighting, so I think I need to take a few years off of trying to fight it. But I
Yeah.
might grow some early spring brassicas
Um,
before
you've
they
just
get out.
reminded me. You've just reminded me, because I don't know if this will work at all. It might be nonsense, but if you plant some sacrificial brassicas over there and distract all butterflies, and then keep yours under cover, and then they just go to those. I've got a purple sprouting broccoli still in the ground from last winter, I guess. And it kept trying to flower. It produced the tiny. They weren't really worth taking off and eating because they were getting smaller and smaller. But I left it be as a sacrificial one, and for pollinators and whatnot. But it's gone a little bit strange and a bit woody at the bottom. So I pruned it, and I'm just going to see. You never know. What if it's perennial? I mean, that might be nonsense, but because I've pruned it and now it's really cold, if it does survive and if it regrows in spring, am I going to get any decent crop? Or is it going to be rubbish little ones again? I don't know, but I'm experimenting. I'm just going to leave it and see what happens.
Well, is it normally an annual for you?
Well, normally we'd have it in the ground. I don't know. Well, maybe July. I've done them August as well and got away with it. And I've been a bit rubbish with it. I've got two really small ones that I put in really late in the ground, but you'd normally get them starting to flower. Produce your eatable stuff.
Right.
I don't know, March time, until they start getting where it's not worth. Maybe early June if you really eke it out, and then they're
Yeah.
not worth it, and then they tend to come out of the ground and it gets used for something else, and then you start your other ones maybe, I don't know, June, July time, and cycle repeats. So yeah, they're a bit like an annual, but at the wrong time of year kind of thing that you do with them. But when
Okay.
I looked at it, I was clearing out. I actually went up and did some work the other day. I was doing a big clear out, And I just looked at it and thought, well, it's kept flowering and flowering and flowering. I'm going to just prune it off a bit like you do with a normal broccoli, and I'm just going to
Hmm.
see whether it'll refresh it and reinvigorate it. But if it starts flowering with the rubbish little ones, I'll just get rid of it and then I'll know. But you never know. I mean, we'll see. Another
Yeah.
experiment.
Well, yeah, you never do know. Now, when you were saying about you're just going to plant, leave it as the sacrificial lamb, so to speak, for
Mm.
the other brat, how how do you think they will only go to that one and not still attack everything underneath?
I think it's because I believe in karma.
Okay.
It's
Uh,
more that than anything, isn't it? Yeah. But
okay.
that, when I uncovered the new brassica bed that I'd made, Mel, she sent me quite a lot of seeds. Thank you so much. I mention her so much because there's a lot of things that Mel sent me in the garden at the moment. But she sent me some 9-star broccoli, and there's 2 really nice plants which I'm really looking forward to, flowering and making some crop this next year. But when I took the cover off, a butterfly must have laid an egg through it like they do, because it was quite compressed, and there's quite a big chunky caterpillar on there that I put in the video, and it was the only one that I could find in there. So I actually left him because I thought he's not going to do a number on this whole thing, and there's going to be no more now. So bless him, I just left him. I'm a softie.
Yeah. No, I get that.
Yeah,
I don't even like to throw out seedlings. That makes
yeah,
me crazy. And but that's
yeah.
part of my I've learned that I have to, for the ones that I do have, that I do want to have enough room, and I plant pretty high intensity. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, giving everything their maximum room, but I realize if I jam any more in here, nobody's going to do well. So
Yeah.
it's almost like, sorry, you're the littlest. Sorry, dude, gotta go. Yeah, but I hate
I've,
it.
I've,
I
I've
hate it.
remembered something else that I did the other day when I were up there. I was checking on the garlic. All of it's coming through nice now. But I did save some seed pods from a load of radish that was near where the shallots were growing, and I just chucked all the seed heads with the branches and everything in the greenhouse. So I've taken some off that look decent because some were a bit fluffy and a bit mouldy and not really worth it. So I've got some of those now for stock, but the rest of them I just crumbled them into the garlic bed. So we never know. We might see if some radish winter sow outside, properly outside as well. Because I mean, there were that many of them went down there. Something
Yeah,
might come up, but that'd be a nice early catch crop between all the garlic
sure.
as well. It'd be done and out. So if it does happen to survive and come up again, it's another experiment that's succeeded, I suppose. But
Yeah,
for nothing, I mean, it's nothing of a job. Just go like that and go, well, let's just see what happens. As long as you can remember, and you don't go, what's all this, and hoe it off.
right.
Because
And
yeah,
that's
that's
the
something
big
I'd do.
problem when you just did it kind of off the cuff. It's
Yeah,
almost like you need to put a marker in there going, "Random radish seed has been planted here." Don't
yeah.
pull out Nancy's got a good question. How about sowing, how about winter sowing herbs? Does that work too? Absolutely, particularly if they're perennial in your area. I don't know that I would, um, I don't know that I would do the soft, like basil, but
Mm.
again, Claire's sowing tomatoes, so who knows? Uh, but I think thyme and rosemary and all those, at least that are perennial for you, I think they would do great.
I do. I did put on my list and question mark lavender because I've got some
Oh,
Hidcote
lavender would
lavender
be great.
seeds. Yeah,
Lavender
and
would
it
be great.
said when I checked the packet in spring, it said 50 days germination time, and I went, "You what?
Yeah,
I want it now, or in a couple of weeks." I thought, "Oh,
right.
whatever." I didn't realise. So I did wonder if that might work, but I'm terrible with lavender. Every lavender plant I've put in the garden here, and I've done everything I thought I meant to be doing, I've successfully killed it by the end of the year.
Oh,
So I'm cursed with lavender and I really want it. But
too much
anyway.
water, do you think?
Well, I mean, it is clay soil. Um,
Because
so,
they don't mind it kind of dry and
yeah, I did a
it,
load of gritting or a pot, just have it in a pot. I could even sink it in the ground in its pot and move it. Yeah, I'm going to have to work a bit hard. That's the thing, though. If I've got to work hard at something, it gets jettisoned, doesn't it, as we know?
but once lavender gets established, I mean, all you have to do is take care of it once a year,
Mm,
so it doesn't get too woody, and you will have a plant that will serve you for quite some time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, lavender does beautiful in winter sowing.
I'm going. I want to try chamomile because
Oh,
I had some chamomile. It's quite. It can be a bit finicky to germinate. I think that. And I had a fail one year, then I had a success, and I put it in the garden and it overwintered. And then last winter, again, north facing back garden, -7 or 8. It did cop for it and it died. So I do need to start some more of that. But like lavender, things that you can use in your soaps and your creams and all that
sure,
kind of thing. That alchemistic, godly plants that are
sure.
just
And
so
tea.
wonderful.
I
You
mean,
know,
that's those are all
yeah,
great for
tea,
tea. And
holistic
and
plants. You know.
I have winter sowed chamomile because
Mm,
again, it's a perennial here for me. And so I think anything that's a perennial,
yeah,
I will absolutely pop it in there. But I
great. I'm
am
gonna do it.
excited. Yeah, I am excited to try um, the cold weather crops. I've never done that. I've always stuck with flowers and
Yeah.
things.
Are
So
you going to do your agastache again, or your hyssop?
I yes, I am. And I think I
Mm.
sowed that last year, winter sowed it, and it was one of the ones that got fried because I didn't
Oh,
take my lids off. So I think I actually bought another kind of agastache. I like how you say that. Um, so I'm going to have a couple of them, but again, they're perennials. So
yeah.
again, I'm gonna be checking those little pots every day when it starts getting warmer and get those lids off.
Mm. Yeah, that's
Uh,
another one that's amazing. I've got the anise hyssop type of one. Um, yeah, it's so nice. Just go past it and you're just like that, aren't you? Just like, oh, it's so
yeah,
good.
and I kind of upped my tea game this year. So I
Yeah.
had a whole lot of other beautiful things for tea, and they just work beautifully. I
I
was
love that
so
idea. Tea garden. It's so
yeah,
romantic sounding to me that I'd
isn't
love a
it?
tea garden.
And you
Yeah,
wanna
it
sit
really
out
is.
with a little pot of tea and look at the
Yeah,
garden. Yeah.
yeah,
No,
that's
it's
nice.
beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah. And I the one thing that I found was, red vein sorrel. Dry that, makes a fabulous tea.
Well, I got some sorrel sent in my seed crit Santa. Yeah, have you heard? Did you hear about that on Instagram? The seed crit Santa.
I saw it on Instagram,
Yeah,
all your
Charlie's
seeds.
patch does it over
Yeah,
here.
that
It's
was
only a UK thing. But yeah, my seed crit Santa. I still don't know who it is, but she knows I've got a channel and all the rest of it because she put in the card, and I thought, oh, who is it? But I've got some sorrel, so yes, great. I'd love to
yeah,
try
well,
that for
the
tea.
red veined actually, uh, makes the tea kind of a pink color.
Oh, it's even better.
'Cause it ha yeah, and it has a
Put it on my
lovely
list.
well, it has like a lemony, citrus, pretty much like the sorrel does, only it's more gentle when it's, in the tea, it's lovely.
Mm, nice. Of course, you
So
can brew it to the strength you want too. So
exactly.
custom blend.
Yeah, no, it was wonderful. Uh, Margaret Alice has a question. "Hi, Amir, I see that you're here, welcome. Uh, have you tried growing lavender in strawberry pots? I'm in the UK, and my terracotta strawberry pots work for lavender."
Great idea.
Interesting. And that'd
Yeah,
probably be very pretty with all
yeah.
those those little cup-sized things coming out the
In the
sides.
middle of the tea garden.
Well, wouldn't that be beautiful?
Yeah.
That needs to have its, like, own yeah, that would be
I'm getting
so
excited.
I
I must
think
admit, thinking about this, like today, I was thinking about the winter sowing, and I was reminding myself of varieties. And, oh, that. I know what felt my mojo coming back. I was like,
mhm.
oh, yeah, I'm excited now.
I have a pile of, seed catalogs behind me, and I just keep ripping pages out going, "Yep, you need that. Yep, you need that." I
Yeah.
just need more garden is what I
Mm.
need. I don't need one more seed, I need more garden.
I need more
Uh,
time. I need to clone myself so I can have boring work, Claire, and I can have one that goes and does all the fun stuff.
Joanne's asking, "Do you brew it fresh or dry it first?" I I think we're talking about the sorrel. Uh, I dried mine first because it was kind of an experiment, uh, and it was wonderful. So I imagine you could brew it fresh, though.
Maybe.
I don't see why
Mm.
not. I mean, I've brewed fresh mint for tea.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, so yeah, I guess. Yeah. So I say try it both ways, see which way you like it. Um, yeah. Okay. Oh my goodness, we're at 55 minutes here. It feels like we just started talking.
yeah.
Um, so are there any last questions about winter sowing? And is there anyone here who's going to try it that hasn't?
Yeah, it's
I
so
would.
easy to do, just even if you
Oh,
just want to experiment. But if you do go down the rabbit hole and do some online research, there's so much. I was just mind blown when I saw how many you could do. I mean, the back of the seed packet, bit of a fib. It's not telling you the whole story.
yeah.
So when you're kind of just spinning plates and meeting yourself coming backwards in spring, you can cut so much out of what you've got to do by doing it in winter and just going, oh look, it sounds like a takeaway arriving.
Right.
You just go, look plants, and it's brilliant. Honestly, gotta give it a go.
Well, I have a video on my channel. It was my first video, so be gentle. It's really kind of bad, but it does go through the steps of winter sowing. So if but there's so many videos out on winter sowing. And if you
Yeah.
Google it, you can even Google, like if you're trying to do a certain seed, go Google, can I winter sow this? You'll
Mm.
have 100 answers come up.
Well, if I
Uh,
if I can shout somebody out, not that she needs it. The one that I first saw and then started doing more and more research was Garden Answer, and
oh yeah,
I think isn't she Oregon, but she's more the
she is.
interior. She's like I think she says she's like desert, kind of high desert. She gets it really cold and really quite warm.
Yeah, they get
Um,
freezing and I mean, they're in the hundreds. I think
yeah.
yeah, she's either Northern Oregon or Southern Washington.
Mm,
Yeah, and she just
I
had a
think she's
video.
Oregon.
Okay, she just had a video come out, even today, I think, on winter sowing. So she's a great resource.
Yeah,
Uh,
and she goes antiquing with her mum and does videos about that, and I love that too. Honestly, yeah,
yeah.
pile of biscuits in bed watching antiquing. It's ace. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
Get like gardening stuff and
yeah,
antiquing all
no,
in one go. It's brilliant.
and they have a enormous property.
Yeah,
So, oh yeah, it just keeps getting bigger. They keep buying up plots.
yeah,
So they just keep getting bigger. But
mm,
yeah, she's a good resource for winter sowing.
definitely.
Uh, and I think, gosh, I feel like this whole wintersowing.org thing needs to be recreated because wouldn't it be nice if there was just a general resource?
Yeah, I feel
Uh,
like I need to get a patch made for my coat that says "I am a winter sower." Some silly thing like that.
right. We need those bands that
Yeah,
wristbands that you can.
that's
Um,
it. You go, hey, you're a winter
yeah,
sower down
winter
garden centre.
sower.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Claire, I want to thank you for being here.
Thank
Uh,
you.
just love chatting with you. I want to thank everybody who's been live with us. And I saw there were quite a few people. Pauline's going to try it. Nicola's trying it.
Sophie.
Uh, Sophie's the right pair, right?
Allotment newbie.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
Oh,
confuse matters by calling her a formal name.
I, Joanne's going to try it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think we'll have a follow-up to this maybe in the spring
Oh,
when we
yeah.
start
Well,
opening the
definitely.
containers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely for the tomatoes, because that, I mean, so it's the video I was most excited about doing was winter sowing them again. And then let's see, I mean, if
yeah,
it doesn't work, but I mean, the logic's fair, isn't it? But
I think it is. I
yeah,
think
but
it
I've got to
is.
see if the frozen ones survived, because that's a bit of a stretch,
Well, I
isn't it? But
dried some pepper seeds, and it was a variety of pepper that was probably my favorite. And the person who made the seeds is no longer making the seeds, so I can't get them. So I was going to try to sprout some of them. but they've been
Mm,
dehydrated. So
right.
I'm gonna see what I get because it's a kind of pepper I would love to be able to get again.
Yeah.
But I think I have to do like hundreds to try
Oh,
to, you know? Uh,
maybe.
yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's a whole other discussion, right? Okay, so everybody have a lovely week, and we'll be back next week. I have I need to get some emails out and see who'll be on with me, and but we'll be here. Okay, same time.
Happy New Year!
Take care. Yeah, happy. Oh, yeah, I didn't even say that. Happy New Year.
Bye!
Okay, bye.